Well,
Yeah.
Peter, you this is the last of our series of seminars, which Peter is helping us to run, based on the subject of AI, which, in our experience, anecdotally, seems to be saving between 5 and 8 hours a week per person, per active user. And so IFA practices are particularly, in my opinion, need a nudge to get it installed, as we ourselves did from Peter, to get it installed, meaning to get subscriptions going to enhance the usage and privacy. So Peter, we're this is your last of the year.
Yeah.
So to teach us the latest nuances that we should be mindful of. So over to you.
Brilliant. So I will share my screen. Hopefully it says strategic AI for your business. So this session will be probably a bit different to all the others, where to some degree we were looking at a new technology, a new feature of the AI. We're now at the point in these, I'll just get the right slide. Here. We're at the point in these sort of series of workshops where hopefully you understand AI enough. You've seen some of the features, whether that's through ChatGPT, Claude, or Gemini. The deeper prompting workshop was more sort of, look, you've been given the tool. Now, how do you get the most out of it? You're then thinking, shall I use this in my business maybe as an individual? So maybe you bought an enterprise account or had a look at the options. We then had a look at some real advanced uses of AI, which is moving to agentic AI. And now strategic AI is more, how are you going to bring this AI products possibly into your business? Now, I know this is a bigger problem with larger businesses, but a lot of the lessons still apply to smaller businesses. How do you take this AI transformation and turn it into actually productive value for your business? So agenda-wise, we're going to have a look at sort of why now, the strategic context, what companies are saying, what surveys are saying. Then we're going to have a look at this analysis framework, which is really assessing the state of your business before you jump in with AI, because there can be some problems if you do it the other way around. Then how do you get AI readiness at your organization? AI isn't just a tech problem, it's a people problem as well. What do you need to consider with data readiness for your organization? What solution architecture is there? This isn't going to get too technical, but just so you're aware, you need some governance. And then actually at the end, how would you go about creating a strategy which will provide you a nice sort of roadmap for AI? As with all of these talks so far, if you have a question, just ask it. Don't wait to the end for the questions. Just come off mute or write it in the chat. And I'll just get the chat up so I'm aware if something comes in. Okay, let's get going. So the strategic context. What are people saying about AI at the moment in terms of organizations and businesses? Now, I do stress a lot of these numbers are more focused on our larger organizations, but it does frame the problem as to where we are. So we've got 93% of CEOs saying like they've adopted Gen AI. That literally could just be using ChatGPT in their organization. I bet the 7% are companies that aren't really digitally enabled. So yeah, the majority of CEOs using Gen AI. 61% actually investing in, I'd say, real AI products, generative AI, cloud and analytics, possibly some custom AI software as well. So generally, most organizations are taking this seriously. Some numbers that are put out there. 30% of work hours could be automated by 2030. I would put huge caveats on that. It really depends what job. I think if you're a software engineer, could be more. If you're doing something a bit more manual, I suspect it will be a lot less. So it's just framing it at the moment. And the demand for AI talent. This isn't just in machine learning and AI, because AI is just going across all jobs, is through the roof at the moment. So let's move that on to the leadership challenges that are actually evolving from the situation that we're currently in. So most CEOs are saying actually their strategic growth for whatever domain, whatever business they're in at the moment, is going to be heavily coming from AI. AI will have that biggest impact to grow their business. And that links closely with digital transformation. I think any digital transformation you're doing at the moment will probably have an AI aspect. And again, leadership is recognizing that as a challenge. We're expecting to see talent shortages in AI skills. 70% will foresee we're going to have skills shortages, that we have business experts, but actually they need these AI skills as well, in order to make the most out of the products that are available on the market. If we have a look at the numbers that are being invested in AI, the economy is expecting a lot of efficiency to be had. There's some huge numbers in the trillions, which is the expected efficiency. So leadership is very much seeing how can AI make our organization more efficient. Now, what is being recognized is actually a leadership challenge as we go through this AI transformation. Is going to be the culture that exists in the organization. If you have a good culture that is got a growth mindset, you're likely to succeed. If you have a different kind of culture, you may not actually ride this transformation wave as well. Just a good success story for companies who are making the most out of AI. Now, this is a significantly larger company than probably your outfits, but it does frame how they've managed to make AI work for them. So this is the Norwegian Sovereign Wealth Fund. They've got 1.8 trillion. Now, what they did, this was about last year, actually, they partnershiped with a big AI lab called Anthropic. And they brought in some AI tools that effectively allowed any member of staff or any member of the organization to query their databases using standard natural language. So could you give me the numbers for this fund in January? Now, in large organizations, previously, how you would go about doing that is you would actually have to submit a request to a data engineering team. They would have to write a specific coding query. You often wouldn't get back exactly what you wanted. So the fact that they brought in AI to this process effectively allowed everyone to get access to all of that information they held on all of these databases. So there we've got this productivity boost as a result. Reports that were taking 10 days or so, or days at least, are now taking minutes to occur. And they really had, to a certain extent, they did force this on their staff. Research shows that you can sort of get about 70% of the way there in your AI transformation with giving the carrot, but actually that last sort of 30% sometimes employees need the stick. They actually implemented a policy where to get promotion at the company, you had to be demonstrating use of AI tools. So they're providing the AI tools, they're providing the training. It is to a certain extent up to the employee to actually demonstrate they're using them to proceed and be successful at that company. They also implemented a hiring freeze due to AI, where they effectively said, look, we believe we can get all these efficiencies to still grow using AI. And we are seeing that as well with other companies that are putting out policies where effectively if you want to employ a new member of staff at that organization, you have to justify why AI cannot be used to fulfill that task. So they've done very well through AI, and there's opportunity for everyone to do very well through AI, but it is a transformation problem. So before you think we're going to implement AI in my business, it is well worth having a good understanding of your business. Now, as small business owners, you probably do have a better understanding, but when we talk to larger businesses, sometimes they're completely clueless as to what actually goes on in their organization, in the processes. So what we can see is effectively AI is a big topic at the moment. People on the board want to see that you're implementing an AI strategy. There is an expectation on leadership that you are doing something with AI. So you just go and put an AI solution in somewhere. You buy all the organization a Copilot license, for example. You are effectively looking for problems that the AI can solve, which is not rarely the way about. So it's not the best way of doing it. You should naturally have problems and then look at what's the best tool to solve the problems, not just look at what can AI do, and I'm now going to try to steer that into a problem in my business. And as a result of this, what a lot of organizations have found is they're not getting the ROI from AI because they've just given this generic tool. They haven't really found the problem that it's solving, and there's a lot of wasted money. And not just that, people in the organization are getting frustrated because they've just been given this AI tool that's been told it will make them more efficient, and actually it's not been targeted. There hasn't been the training involved, and actually it's almost a damage to people's perception of AI in the organization. So when you go about maybe a transformation round 2, people are already pretty skeptical about all the benefits that can come. So it's really important to actually think about what's going on in your organization before you implement an AI tool. And over the next 10 minutes, we're going to have a look at some strategies for how you can go about doing this. So the iceberg model is a model, I think a leadership model, which has a look at trying to diagnose what is responsible for events that you see in your business. So forget AI at the moment. Let's just think about your business. What is an event? So an event is something that's easy to observe in your business. It could be things like complaints are rising, employee turnover is high, sales turnover is high. Now, this framework tries to help you get to the bottom of what actually is causing that event. So the first thing that you try to identify, are there any patterns behind this event? For instance, if complaints are rising, are they just constantly rising? Do they rise at certain points in time? Is it just at the end of the month? Is it towards the end of the year? Is it certain departments or certain products that are generating various complaints? So usually there's some patterns to the events that we see. And then what often is supporting those patterns is the structures in your business beneath that. What is it that is causing complaints, hypothetically, to spike at the end of the month? Is it actually, maybe you're a software company, you seem to do releases towards the end of the month, and that is how your business is set up? Is it maybe your deal with customer service and you have a flat staffing layout? You don't actually put more staff on at the end of the month when typically there's more going on in your business. So usually there's structures that are supporting the patterns that you see, and those patterns, the events manifest themselves in patterns. And then finally, the hardest one to sort of get under the hood of is the mental models. So these are the beliefs and assumptions that your employees have about your business that, again, could be causing the events that you're seeing. So it could be actually your employees seem to think that actually we value speed over the quality, or we've always done it this way, as an example. Now that could be actually driving what's going on in the event. You may actually have a structure that's fine, you may have patterns that are fine, but the mental models of your employees is this is the way it's done. So getting underneath your event when it comes to an AI solution can help, because otherwise you can end up in a situation here, which is quite a simplistic case study. But imagine the event that you observe in your organization is that actually you have a very long support queue for whatever support you're providing. So immediately, maybe you've come to one of these webinars and you think, oh, AI is going to be able to do a brilliant chatbot, brilliant FAQ experience. So let's just put a chatbot at these problems to help the support queue. But actually, maybe you didn't take the time to have a look at what was the root cause that this support queue was too long. Is it actually, it just seems to spike when we have new updates to our software? And actually, why is it that it spikes then? Maybe we don't ship something with our software, maybe some release notes, maybe better documentation. And the reason we do that is because the employees think the culture of the business is that we just need to get everything out quickly and we'll then fix it later. So actually that, in this example, the company would have done better taking the time to understand the root cause of the problem rather than just putting this AI solution that actually was not the root cause. Okay, again, I'm going through this relatively quickly. Do stop me if you have any questions on it. So we've got underneath the system. Now, what we're trying to think about is actually how our system is interlinked in our business. And this is about systems thinking. We have these critical paths throughout our business. So if I know it's a small diagram, but hopefully you can see it on the right hand side, we can consider certain properties of our business. And these are all going to be connected together. So in the middle here, we have the number of employees available to work. And we have these arrows that link the cause. So the start of the arrow is the cause and the effect is what it goes to. So the number of employees available to work, if that goes up, the productivity of the company is likely to go up. Where you see a positive, it means they go up in the same way. Where you see a negative is their inverse. One goes up, one goes down. So if we just followed some of the links in this diagram, the number of employees available to work is going up, the productivity is going up. If that productivity of the organization is going up, it's less likely you're going to have to use overtime. If it's less likely you're going to have to use overtime, it's more likely your employees can spend more time on what they want to do. Maybe that's time with family, leisure time. And then the morale of your employees is going up. And if the morale of your employees is going up, there will be a connection possibly to call-ins due to sickness, which could actually feed back. If there's less call-ins to sickness, actually you're going to get a higher number of employees at work. Now, being able to map out aspects of your business like this is really good before you make a change. Because when you look to make a change on a certain aspect, you can have a look at the possible effects further down the line. Okay, so if we're just to move on to some examples of this, it could be that you just have, let's take hiring as the first example. Instead of actually you looking through some applications to decide who's a suitable candidate, maybe use AI to do faster hiring. Now, maybe the AI doesn't seem to promote diversity, so therefore one of the knock-on effects of that would be less diversity. What could be the knock-on effect of having less diversity in your company? You could work that down further down the line. Automated support. Maybe again, you're thinking I spend too much money on human support, so we're going to go down automated support. Now, if we're going down automated support, is it likely that the service may be slightly less good? So therefore, we may actually get more complaints. Now, if we can see that pattern in advance, then we could possibly apply resource in the right places. So maybe, yes, it does make sense to go to automated support, but we're going to put a few more staff possibly on complaints and deal with it that way. Okay, and we have to as well remember in bigger organizations, which typically departments can become a bit more siloed and they don't really care for the problems of the other department. You can put in certain processes and certain efficiencies in place in one area of the business that then have a knock-on effect on other areas of the business. Again, if you had an AI that was to cut operations, then actually support could be overloaded. Imagine actually you had an AI that somehow managed to accelerate with your sales. Instead of managing to contact 10 people a day, it contacted 1,000 people per day. That's great. You expect far more business, but actually you haven't planned for the delivery from that. And then your delivery team starts to struggle. Okay. So again, before we put in an AI solution, try to understand how bits of your business and the tasks within your business interact, because that will prevent problems happening further down the line. So really have a think about what connections there are in your business, what feedback loops there are, because some of these can reinforce each other. How do those changes ripple around your organization? Are there any unintended consequences that could happen from possibly putting that in place? And who are the people affected in the business? Now, the decision canvas. So this is about thinking about the tasks that you, or the workflows that you do and your employees do in your role is going to be made up of individual little tasks. And when we think about AI helping us in our role, we shouldn't think about AI as taking on the entire workflow. AI has the potential to take on tasks within our workflow. And we need to have a think about actually what kind of tasks are going to be suitable for AI to take on, and in what capacity the AI can take it on. So one of the things you should think about, break your workflow down into steps. For instance, if your invoice processing was a workflow, you receive the invoice, you then have to extract the information, flag the issues, suggest problems or changes to the invoice, you need to resolve it and then approve it. Okay. Now, you should have a think about who are the stakeholders involved, because that will help you make your decision on where you think AI is appropriate. What's the input into that task? What's the output of that task? And what are the risks associated with that task? And that will help you understand where you can have a fully autonomous AI take on the task, where you could have a partial, a sort of human AI teaming. So that's probably you using Copilot, you using ChatGPT, you using some other AI software. The AI is doing a lot of the helping, but you're still doing a lot of the judgment. Or there are going to be some tasks in our workflows that actually AI just is not appropriate at all. And being able to break those down should ensure that we use AI in the correct way. Now, this is a very general sort of set of criteria to help you understand where AI could be appropriate for certain tasks in your workflow. So if you have a very repetitive task, it is likely that's going to be high volume, likely that could be suitable for a full AI. If there is variation in that task, AI may not quite understand the edge cases that are coming in. So that's maybe where you want a bit more human oversight. If actually the task is not repetitive at all, it seems to come in unique with very unique variants each time, then actually that probably isn't suitable for your AI. Again, we can go down to data quality. AI works very nicely with well-structured, accurate data. If you have that, then it could be an opportunity for a full AI solution. Again, if it's just good enough, or there's going to be typos or possible errors in there, then that, again, you want that human oversight, possibly partial AI. If the data quality is terrible, it's likely your AI will get confused by the situation, and therefore actually it may be more of it won't be helpful at all. It'd actually probably be negative in how helpful it is. Error risk is definitely something to be considerate of. If there is a low, if the tolerance for your error is low, so therefore the consequence is high. If the consequence of an error in the AI is low, then again, AI may be suitable. If the consequence of having an error is very high, then that goes on to possibly we shouldn't be using AI in these cases. The same with empathy. If part of that workflow requires a lot of empathy, possibly AI is not the best case. We should maybe go more to the spectrum of no AI. And as well, appropriate for this audience, a degree of compliance. How compliant does the operation you need to be? And that will depend on the spectrum in which you use AI. And I should state here, not all AIs are the same. Some AIs are going to be very specialist for the task and therefore can take on more risk and more compliance. But as a general rule, if you're trying to think about which areas AI could be used, this could provide some guidance. Okay. And the final section of this sort of analyzing our business and our change. So what we've done so far, we use that iceberg model to really understand what's going on with our business. We've then looked at how everything connects in our business, that systems thinking. We then had a look at, let's break down our workflow into various tasks to see where AI could be appropriate. And now maybe we've identified actually somewhere where AI could be appropriate. In order to bring that AI on board, we can break this, or to bring on any change on board, we can break it into a technical challenge or an adaptive challenge. Now, technical challenges are typically a lot easier. The problem is clearly defined and we know how to solve the solution. It usually just involves an expert or two doing it. And very importantly, the people management of the situation is pretty light. It doesn't really change people's behaviors. So for example, if your company was upgrading from Windows 10 to Windows 11, it would probably just involve the IT team, and that upgrade would take place. You would log into your computer the next day. Nothing really changes to how you do things. That, from a change management perspective, is quite a simple change to go through. An adaptive challenge is one where actually the problem is not so clear. It's evolving because of the technology that you've brought in. There's no real playbook. There's no instructions as necessarily how this challenge plays out. And crucially, once the technology or the change has been made, there may be new learning and new behavior and a new culture within your employees. And this is the bucket of challenges that most AI problems fall into. Often people just think it's a technology problem. We're just going to buy the solution and then just give it to our staff and that will be fine. But actually, adaptive problems realize you're changing people's behaviors as well. And just doing the technical change is not going to be enough to get the most out of that change management process. Now, I think I may have used this case study before, so apologies if you were on a call where I've used it, but I think it's quite a powerful one to demonstrate the point. Some GP practices in the UK at the moment have been working with a transcription tool where you actually have the consultation, it's recording the audio of your GP and the patient at the same time, and then after the consultation, the GP uses the recording and it automatically generates patient notes. Seems pretty good. The problem, I guess, was trying to reduce the time, the admin time for that GP to write the notes. That was really the technical challenge. But what actually some GPs have been finding is there's deeper effects of this. So the first one that they found was actually it's changing the way they're consulting. It's changing the way they're consulting because they're aware that the notes that they're being used or the notes that are being written are based on the transcript. So therefore, if we don't include some details on the transcript, maybe these are very technical details that normally you wouldn't have in a consultation, they won't appear on the notes. And then the GP has to go through those notes and start amending them a lot. So therefore, if you want to be really efficient in your consultation, you'll start using a lot of jargon because you need that jargon in your notes because the notes are being used across other medical practitioners. So therefore, the behavior of the consultation is changing. And this is actually having an effect on the patient-doctor interaction. So that's something that wouldn't have been considered when you thought, oh, we're just creating notes from a transcription tool. Other factors include that the AI was hallucinating. So every now and then it was making up stuff in the notes. Okay, the GP can go in and they can change it, but it's breaking down trust, therefore, between practitioners. Because what if something has ended up in the notes due to the AI? And now actually we know sometimes we're time pushed, we haven't checked it carefully. So therefore you begin to question your colleagues' notes when they look like they've been written by AI. Is this 100% factual? And then as well, you've got factors like they're not remembering their consultations as well, because during typically the process after the consultation, you write up the notes that was reinforcing the consultation. So now actually their consultations may, or their repeat consultations may be taking longer to do. And that's no good for the business. So recognizing in this case that the transcription tool to create some notes would require behavioral changes to the way they operate and the way that patients interact with it would have probably been good instead of just saying, look, here's the tool to use. Okay. Any questions at this point? Okay. So hopefully we've got the idea that just throwing AI at the task without understanding our business isn't a great idea to start with.
It's quite technical, your for this first half hour. I mean, and I suspect it's seems aimed at larger organizations. I'm not sure the size of the organizations are, the attendees. But...
Yeah, so I guess typically the bigger the organization, the bigger these kind of problems become. So yeah, for I guess 1-man bands, 2-man bands, it's less of an issue. However, the people challenge, which we're coming on to, definitely still is relevant to think about, even if you are maybe like a 5-person organization. Recognizing the fact that bringing AI to your organization is going to affect your people is one of the best ways to get the most out of AI. So we've got here 91% is about the culture. The technology is not blocking AI adoption. OpenAI, Anthropic, they're dealing with the technology fine. They're producing models that are really, really good. It's how we start using them in our organization and using them effectively. Here, 32% of the workforce actually feel confident to be able to use AI. Again, so many organizations aren't training people and getting the most out of AI. And those organizations, and again, it is typically the bigger ones, that if you're going to invest in that change management, putting in that training, putting in the communication so people feel safe in their organization, you're more likely to get the most out of AI. Now, when we think about the type of people that you have in your organization, when you're bringing in a new technology, this graph is worth bearing in mind. It is the tech adoption graph. Typically, in your organization, you may have 1 or 2 or 2.5% of your staff will be these innovators, or 13.5% will be these early adopters. These are the kind of people who like tech just for the sake of it. They're going to be trying it out after work. Probably early in 2023, they were playing around with ChatGPT. Okay. Then you've got the majority, that I'm going to say your early majority and your late majority. Most of the people are going to be later to adopt the technology. And actually, these are the kind of people who are only going to be using the technology once it's been sort of made aware to them, it's been given to them by the organization, and they can see a benefit in using it. They don't get excited by it, but they see a productivity benefit. And then you have the laggards, who are the people in your organization who often are quite resistant to change for one reason or another. And when you're bringing in your AI tools, it's worth thinking about your organization, who you have on your payroll, and what kind of people they are, because the communication that you use to bring in that tool will depend on the type of personnel that you have there. So this links to this stakeholder empathy mapping. So with empathy mapping, especially with a change, you're trying to think about how your stakeholders are going to think about the change that you're bringing in. And they will think very differently if they're an innovator or an early adopter to the AI product you're bringing in, compared to if they're a laggard. And you can try to sort of scaffold this empathy mapping and have a think about what that employee is going to think, maybe when you bring in that AI meeting transcription tool. Are they going to be thinking, is this going to replace my role? I don't trust the AI to capture the nuance, because maybe I work with lots of, well, yeah, maybe I work in a very technical domain and I'm worried it won't understand jargon and things like that. Do I actually need to learn any new skills for this tool? And then you can have a feeling about, have a think about how they would be feeling around that. Are they going to be anxious about the job security? Are they going to be actually excited about the time savings? What actually may you hear in your organization about what people are saying? It might be useful for admin tasks. I'm worried about the accuracy, things like that. And then you can have a look at actually what your workforce are likely to do. So potentially, if they're anxious about job security and will it replace my role, they may actually be pushing back on the technology and saying, no, I'm going to continue doing it manually. I'm not going to be attending training reluctantly. So by thinking about the people in your organization, are they the innovators? Are they that main majority? Are they the laggards? You can then frame the change that you want to happen in the language that they want to hear. Okay. And when you go into this deeper, there are advantages from working with each of the people in those categories. Okay. And there are also problems that with each of those individuals in those categories. Take innovators. They're great at bringing new AI tools and workflows into your organization. And they say, well, actually, look, I've worked out how to do this and it will save us 30 minutes a day. But equally, they may be doing it on licenses that are personal to them, and they actually may not be telling you about it because they don't want you to give you more work because they know how efficient you are. Equally, the laggards, they're always going to look for problems in the transformation that you provide them. If you provide them a new tool, they're going to really try hard to sort of say, actually, no, this isn't compliant. Oh, I'm not sure this works with GDPR. Where's this data processed? And by engaging them in your change management process, you can actually ensure that you have a really robust solution. You just have to have a mindset that you're possibly going to come up against these kind of issues, but actually use them as a positive. Any question on sort of that people management through this process? Okay. So part 4 is the data readiness. So there was a quote, it says 2006, I'll believe it, that data is the new oil. In terms of the more data you have in your organization, the better insights that you'll have and the more profits that you will make. Often the full quote isn't actually used, which is valuable, but if unrefined, it cannot really be used. So effectively, if you've got messy data, if you've got data in systems, if you've got paper data, that's not going to translate necessarily to profit as easily as well-structured, well-organized data in your organization. Now, the first thing to realize about AI is you can get on board with AI at the moment in 2025 without any real proprietary data of your own. You can still gain efficiency benefits. You can still have lots of productivity benefits without necessarily having your own data. However, if you do have your own data and it is in a structured format, you are likely to be able to get far more out of AI. You may be able to get custom models. You may be able to have AI that is linked to your data stores that can answer your specific questions about your own company data. So what we need to understand is we're putting in our AI solution. Yes, we can probably put in a solution with some pretty poor data structures underneath. But if we have good data governance, good data quality, we're likely to get a lot more out of our AI solution. Okay. Now, what do we really mean by data quality? Having our spreadsheets, our CSV files, our databases that are actually accurate, they're complete and consistent, and hopefully they're sort of contextually enriched so that you don't just have odd letters randomly around, jargon. You have nice, accurate, complete data. Accessibility. This is often a problem in larger organizations. Actually, the people who need the data can't necessarily access the data. Therefore, actually, the data quality as your organization as a whole is pretty poor. You cannot be making use of that data. Governance, so ensuring that your data is secure is a key point, but as well, ensuring that a lot of good governance on data is to do with like naming conventions. Is the data stored in the right place? Have we used UK date format as opposed to US date format? Because when we go to combine them, we get a confused picture. So actually having good governance structures on your data, again, will mean that when you put that into your AI, you're more likely to get accurate results and better insights. And integration, can all of your data talk to each other well? And this again is very relevant for AI because you want the AI to be able to interact often with as much of your own data as possible to be able to get the best insights from your organization. So the take home here is if you don't have great data quality, don't worry, you can still often make some use of our AI tools, but moving forward, it's well worth having a think about, is your data organized in such a way that your AI tools can make the most of it? Solution architecture. So maybe you've decided actually there's a certain task of a workflow that seems suitable for AI, what kind of solution should we be throwing at it? Now, I'm not going to go into any kind of cloud-based or software engineering architecture here. This is very high level. Generally speaking, I'd say you've got 3 approaches to how you could implement AI into your organization. You could use something like a general purpose tool, which is what a lot of our talks have been about over the last 6 talks or so. These are bringing in things like Copilot, ChatGPT, Claude Anthropic. These are general purpose AI tools, require relatively little expertise, doesn't really matter on your data infrastructure to start with, although if you do have good data infrastructure, you'll be able to get more out of them. And often good, yeah, for non-specific tasks, your general tasks. However, you may need a third-party AI solution. These are likely to be a bit more expensive, may require a bit more expertise, and may require some training from that provider. The data infrastructure is often still low with third-party AI tools. That human resource, again, should be low. You shouldn't have to get in specific engineers, and it should be good for specific domain needs. And Charlie, I think BAT would fall into that kind of category, a third-party software, really tackling a specific task that you do in your workflow. You're not having to get in any data engineers, but it is, yeah, it's good for the task you want. I don't know, do you want to talk about BAT at all at this point? It's the only time I make reference to it.
Well, it fits a lot of the AI you're talking about as far as the file checking part of it is very, it's a repeatable activity. And yeah. Once you've got it set up and you've got questions inquiring correctly on the files, it's relatively straightforward to deliver the results. And we found you can very rapidly move from 10% file checking to like 100% file checking, and at a lower cost. And the accuracy levels, they can if you're only 75% accurate, which we're well beyond that, but even if you are, then checking 100% of files at 75% accuracy is way beyond checking 10% of files at 100% of accuracy, if you follow.
Yeah.
So that's how we use the AI, and it's tremendously successful, actually. And that's at the moment just checking completeness of files. So users upload fact finds and suitability reports, and we're just checking that everything's there. That's all. And that's a task that takes a skilled file checker 20 minutes on average for an investment case, and probably 10 or 15 minutes just to sort things out. There's 20 or 30 documents, and you just want to sort out where each document is and have a look at it, and before they review it. That's how we use the AI.
Brilliant. Was there a question?
Well, I was just going to say, you start to then think like the AI checker, or do your files and things like that, like the AI checker. What I would like to do is, rather than filling in fact finders, then do what the doctor does, or my podiatrist did this week. Talk to me, and then he's putting his notes on. Yeah, it's recording it. Yeah, and then I check after I've spoken with the client to see if the fact find's been completed. I'd like to get to that stage, rather than having to. Yeah.
Well, what's coming across all of systems this year, it seems to me, is the data extraction. So accountancy is a lot easier, but you can upload a receipt, for instance, to an accountancy package, and it'll strip out the number, strip out the name of the, if it's a garage for a petrol receipt, strip that out, and then post it there, and then you just sort of press approve. Now accountancy is quite simple, and we've got it coming certainly January, end of January. where you can upload your various documents, and it'll pre-populate the BAT system for you. And I think you'll see that proliferate across multiple systems over the next few years. So data extraction is a lot easier, and that carries on to voice files and so on. That's bearing YouTube subtitles for films and so on. So that should help you going forwards.
Okay. Cool. So yeah, that great example, a third-party piece of software, a nice vertical piece of AI to solve a problem. Probably not the solution that a small business would be looking at, but if you had a specific need and a high impact, you could also look to make your own custom AI. But again, the prices and the timeframes are looking to increase significantly, and you're going to be having to get specialized personnel in. So probably small businesses you're looking at, can a general purpose solution be used? If not, can I find a vertical piece of AI specific for that task? Responsible AI and governance. There are loads and loads of cases where AI has been used and made some really quite sometimes humorous, sometimes quite detrimental mistakes. Some high profile examples. Amazon, this was back in 2014. They had a CV algorithm. Effectively, it was trained on having a look at who is successful at Amazon in the organization. Let's have a look at what their CV looks like when they were recruited by Amazon, and have an algorithm try to predict if someone is going to be successful at the organization based on looking at their CV when they join the organization. Now, what they found, unsurprisingly, was that the AI system managed to detect that actually what a successful attribute of an Amazon employee was that they were probably a middle-aged white male, because that was the makeup of the organization at the time. So therefore we had an algorithm that actually they found when they put it in place, if it could detect in some way that you were a female, it was less likely to select you even at that junior stage of the organization. And AIs do have a characteristic of being able to do that. Microsoft Tay was a chatbot that brought out in 2016 that ended up being very racist very quickly. Apple Card, they brought out an AI solution that actually one of the co-founders of Apple, Steve Wozniak, found that when he applied for an Apple Card, it accepted him. When his wife applied, and bearing in mind they have exactly the same bank accounts, everything is shared, it declined her. So he wasn't particularly happy with that, especially as he was one of the founders of the company when it first started. So be aware and have a think about how the AI could fail, and try to put some governance in place for that. Now, if you're interested, I'll just put in a link here. There's a database of all high profile recorded AI incidents, and some of them are, some of them are quite amusing. I'm just trying to cross this line here. I mean, here we go. LinkedIn, this was 2016. What's a relevant one? A new one. You could search by 2025, but there's no shortages of where AI has not been particularly ethical, and that often is a result of poor governance. Generally, the pillars that to think about in terms of your AI governance, just remember that AI at the moment, or generally AI is not accurate. You can have specific pieces of software that kind of check it again, and they can improve their accuracy like that. But AI does have a tendency to hallucinate. So therefore, if you're putting it into a task or a workflow where actually making up having something incorrect, therefore you need to have some governance to be able to deal with that. Explainability is a critical one with these algorithms, especially our generative AI, the type of AI that's everywhere at the moment. These AIs rarely struggle to explain the decisions that they make. They can give reasoning traces where they try to explain to you, actually, I have made this decision because of X, Y, Z. The problem is actually for a lot of domains, a lot of areas of business, this level of explainability does not hold up to scrutiny. If you were to repeat exactly the same inputs, these AI algorithms may give different outputs. So stuff like loan prediction, or not loan prediction, sorry, if you're putting in an AI to determine if a loan will get approved, that, for instance, at the moment, legally, we could not use the type of generative AI algorithms that are in place because they cannot actually explain it was specifically the fact they have a credit score that was low in 2016, which is why they got declined. These algorithms are too complicated. They're too much of a black box. We can't get into them and work out how they're making our decisions. And that as well links to accountability, being clear if you're using an AI in a certain process and it does go wrong, who is going to be responsible? And I've got there at the bottom, legal requirements. We've got a lot of GDPR laws in the UK cover AI, but if you're wanting some guidance, the EU AI Act is probably the best place to work out where a certain task that you want your AI to do, if it would be legally or ethically a bit dubious. So in my case, I do a lot of stuff in education. A generative AI cannot be used in marketing or anything that would potentially prohibit career progression because it's not explainable. Okay, so you need to be aware of these things when you're thinking about your governance. Role transformation. So we've been talking about bringing AI into various tasks that make up your workflows in your business. It is well worth at this point, bearing in mind AI is not going anywhere, to have a think about the skills that you require for the tasks that you do day to day, because it's likely AI is going to change these, and therefore whilst roles will still exist, you need to have a think about in your workforce and for yourself, what skills do you currently have that actually may be displaced by AI? What skills actually do you have, but as AI takes on certain tasks, you need to deepen those skills? So one that I think all of us need to sort of deepen at the moment is our ability to think critically about AI outputs. Because we're consuming a lot of AI information, we're generating a lot of AI information, we need to be able to detect where we think actually maybe that's not quite right. And what skills in this new sort of AI world are we going to have to develop in our role? So again, as an exercise, it can be worth be sort of thinking about areas in your business and the roles that you do, what skills, and therefore you can put training in place and try to get ahead of the game to have an efficient workforce. Okay, brilliant. Finally, creating that.
I was just having a, sorry, very quickly.
Yeah.
I know you haven't got much time. Looking at that incident database.ai,
Yeah.
I'm struck by how many of them are deep fakes, i.e. photograph related,
Yeah.
if you see what I mean. You know, Glasgow man sees his, you know, fantasy school friend, you know, wanted to take her clothes off, so uses AI for that in the Glasgow Herald, and presumably goes to jail or something. But then again and again and again, that sort of thing keeps coming up. But but on the other hand, what isn't there is data protection breaches. So everybody's terrified of using AI because where does the data end up? But I'm struck by how few of those cases are data protection related.
Well, I think just thinking about the nature of that database, it's obviously quite public events. And my guess is there's a lot of breaches that go on in companies that reported to the ICO, they get dealt with and never make it out into the public domain. It's only the high profile ones where someone's been hacked and there's a big like Ashley Madison or something where all of the accounts got leaked. But generally, I think if businesses have like small breaches, I think it's harder to make into the public domain. But I think you're right that they're going on everywhere. And especially with generative AI, because it is to make the most of it, you give it as much data as you can, you give it that context, and therefore you accidentally leak all of that customer information and your valuable IP. So I think it's a great point.
Interesting website. Just see where see what goes. Just fascinating.
Yeah,
Just
I think it's
all
got a
the
lot
incidents.
of filters on. So you could probably filter by finance or something that's relevant to your domain. Brilliant. Finally, creating your strategy. So hopefully so far, I know we've gone through a lot very quickly. Have a look at what your business is currently doing, that workflow analysis. You could use that iceberg model, systems thinking to sort of get underneath there. Have an idea of the solutions architecture. Will a general purpose AI do the job? Am I going to have to go for a vertical AI like BAT? Or actually, do I want to blow a load of money and get an AI engineer in to make something custom? Have a think about people involved in this technical transformation, because that's going to inform your strategy. And actually, how are people's jobs that currently exist, how are they going to change? Okay. Once you have that, you can then try to come up with a strategy. And here's sort of 7 points to get thinking about. The vision and objectives. Now, the detail under this slide of vision and objectives, reduce admin time by 15% over 6 months. I would possibly go actually a bit higher. What are the vision and objectives for your organization to start with? And then you can sort of map your AI strategy a bit more to that. So you've got your vision and objectives. Have a look at the current state of your organization. What's working, what's not working, where the problems are, possibly what are the causes of those problems. And then prioritize those use cases. Point 3. I'm just gonna, I think this is an important slide to look at. If you're wondering how to prioritize my use cases, I would say there are 3 criteria to focus on. What would be the impact of bringing in AI for that use case? Would it be high? Would it be low? How easy is it to do? Is it literally just buying a Copilot license and that is it? In which case that is easy to do. If it's actually, again, custom AI, that's not going to be easy. And importantly, people forget this. Is there a workforce desire for the change? If you're looking to keep the same workforce and the workforce don't really want what you're trying to do, then actually that change management is going to be very difficult. So what you're looking for is really this sweet spot. You want problems that are high impact, that are easy to put in place because of the AI tools that are available on the market, and usually they're boring, repetitive tasks that actually your workforce aren't interested in. It's not the creative, fun tasks. Okay, definitely don't go near tasks that are low impact, hard, and actually your workforce don't really want at all. Okay, so hopefully that can help you decide what kind of use cases to go after. Decide on the solution architecture as we discussed. Put in some sort of governance, as in these are the rules about how this product should be used. These are the owners. This is the kind of data that it can go into. And then do not forget about that change management plan. If you're bringing an AI tool in, think about the comms. Think about how people are going to feel when you bring in that tool. Are they going to feel like they're being replaced? Are they going to actually feel excited about it? You do that empathy mapping. And then very finally, ensure that you have a way of measuring if this new change is actually any good, as in look at the situation beforehand, take some metrics on that. It takes 20 minutes, whatever, for a fact find or something like that, and then do an audit 3 months down the line once you've brought in your AI tool, and then you'll be able to assess actually, is it working? Again, many organizations, we don't do the measurement. We just bring it in for the sake of it at the moment. Okay, I am just going to scroll on to the end because I'm almost there. These were extra slides anyway.
Good
so
time,
takeaway. Yeah, analyze. They were extra slides. Analyze the system first. Get the right solution there. General, third party, custom. Recognize AI as a people solution as well. Both challenges. AI may transform roles. Think in advance about it and create that strategy. Appreciate that was rushed. I'm on an hour. I'm done.
Thank you, Peter. Certainly from my point of view, it's a recruitment freeze is interesting. Forcing people to be more productive. Any questions?
Yes.
Yeah, what would you say for a small guy like me or other guys perhaps doing this people today would be the first step.
Taking out a subscription with OpenAI at £20 a month per user.
Okay, and instead of typing your fact finds, just speak them, and then it takes notes onto it for you.
Yes, you can try that. You can
And
certainly
then you can
anonymize.
check your notes at the end of it, of course, because
What you should do if you want to write a suitability report, anonymize the data. If you can, so like date of birth, address, maybe policy numbers, and then just chuck it in there. Chuck in the research, chuck in the existing facts, and ask it to come up with a solution. You'll be astonished, and ask it to write a suitability report. But the only thing you have to do, you've got to anonymize the data, and I don't really understand it, but every time OpenAI and all the other ones, if you look at their data protection statements, they're all within 2 or 3 months old, and they keep changing them, and that really unsettles me, personally speaking, as to where that data is going. But if you've got a subscription, there's, essentially it's contained, but not 100%. So that's why you've got to take out.
Again, if you're very sensitive with that, go down a Copilot subscription, because chances are you're probably using Microsoft anyway. You're writing Word documents, and their enterprise.
So what one
security.
Did you say? You said OpenAI, Charlie.
Yeah, which is ChatGPT.
Yeah.
Subscribe to that.
So either that or Claude or
What did you say, Pete? What did you say?
Yeah, so you've got probably 4 actually main options. You've got Microsoft Copilot that will work. You get a subscription on top of what you're probably paying for your Windows 365, so your Word, Excel, that kind of thing. Or you go down, as Charlie said, an OpenAI enterprise account, because that will give you that protection that Charlie's talking about. The same with Claude Anthropic, and the same with Google Gemini. I think the key is you want that enterprise level security in the industry that you're in. Just signing up for a personal license is not going to do it. You want to sign up via your business, because then your business can actually have the data protection requirements in place.
Okay, so I do have a Microsoft account, so I should go via Copilot.
Yeah, so give it a Google, how to get Copilot on top of my current Microsoft account, if that's what you want to go down. Also, Microsoft are pretty good. They have like a chat feature. If you're unsure, you can sort of go onto their website and talk to them about what's most appropriate.
And are you saying that if I go and see a client, and I've got your clients, Mr. and Mrs. John and Helen Smith or something like that, are you saying that Copilot are going to keep that in their database as well as mine?
No,
and that's what you're worried about.
So Copilot won't. They will not be storing that data at all. It should all remain in what's called your tenant for Microsoft, and they're not going to be saving it elsewhere. It should all be processed within that framework. Again, there's a lot of documentation. If you just have a quick Google, what protections do I get?
Yeah.
With it, do your own due diligence, but typically that is the easiest and securest route to go down. Most lazy businesses are going down that route, but you do get the protections as well, like Charlie said, with the enterprise accounts from the other AI providers. It's just sometimes Copilot could be considered easier to set up because it's there within what you're already using.
And do you agree with that, Charlie?
Yeah. Yeah, the problem I've got is I don't have experience in all the different various systems, which Peter does have. So for our firm, for Batsoft, just for general everyday usage, research, writing articles and so on, we use OpenAI. But, company subscription, and everybody has their individual section underneath. And then about a month later, you ask everyone how much time it's saving them, and they're all saying 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 hours a week. It's incredible. I mean, but you're going to have customers ask you, if I put this investment here, you're recommending the Far East Fund, and you go, yeah. And what happens if China invades Taiwan? Well, if you plug that into ChatGPT. Peter did a seminar a couple of weeks ago. You know, you'll find the answer. It'll affect the Nasdaq by, I think it came up with 45% drop. There's your answer. You know, if you see what I mean. It's a very simplistic case, but it's astonishing. And you know, who knows if it's right or wrong? But then again, you could have set a bright graduate off on the task, and they could have come up with the same answer. Yeah. We're running over time a little bit. I'm a bit anxious. Okay. We try and finish on time actually, so everyone can just get away. But thank you very much, Peter, and thank you everybody. This is our final seminar for the 2025, so I hope everyone has a happy Christmas, and we'll be back in touch in January with updates for the coming year.